Throughout the years I've been on the Roblox platform, whether it's playing or deving, the thing I've enjoyed the most is combat. I grew up playing combat games that had some sort of fight in them. If it didn't, I probably wasn't playing it. The psychologist did say I should be worried about that. Anyways, I've always loved martial arts, and my favorite shows and movies always have some sort of cool fight scenes, so I guess it makes sense that the thing I've spent the most time both coding and playing is, well, combat. Now, I'm not gonna say I'm an expert, but after playing more Roblox combat games than I can count and rebuilding combat systems over and over, I've definitely learned a lot. If you're watching this video, then chances are combat is one of the features that excites you the most about video games. There's a lot of tutorials already out there that teach you how to code different types of combat, but something that a lot of people usually don't talk about is what type of combat is better for your specific game. So that's what I want to do today. Cover the most popular combat systems that are on the Roblox platform right now, their advantages, their disadvantages, so that by the end of this video, you are better informed about what type of combat to put into your game. If you ask me, there are 3 big categories of combat, but before we jump into the different combat types, let's talk about what all combat systems actually have in common. At the end of the day, the goal of any combat system is simple: destroy your opponent before they destroy you. Everything else is just different ways of achieving that goal. Now, almost every combat system in Roblox, and even outside of it, is built around a few essentials. First, you have light attacks, which are your basic repeatable attacks, usually fast, low damage, and the main thing you'll be spamming. And then the second and last thing that most of them have in common is health points, which is what your damage subtracts. Usually, if this reaches 0, then you lose. And then there are the add-ons that make each game feel unique. You have heavy attacks, which are usually longer in cooldown or wind up in exchange for more damage. You have blocking, which prevents damage, skills, which are custom attack sequences or support mechanics, and last but not least, you have dodging or dashing, which lets you dodge and or reposition yourself somewhere else to avoid damage. All of these are what devs combine and tweak to make their own styles of combat, and depending on how you mix them, you'll end up in one of the main categories we're about to talk about. Number 1, parry-based combat. The best example of this in Roblox would be Deep Woken. I believe it's the game that popularized this. This combat system usually features different base attacks, your regular M1s, you have also running M1s and aerial M1s, plus a heavy attack and a bunch of skills. But what really makes this combat style stand out is its focus on timing. If you block an attack at the right moment, you perform a parry, a kind of mini stun that leaves your opponent vulnerable for a split second, and it gives you a chance to counterattack. Sometimes players will start parry trading, which is when both players keep parrying each other over and over. It's kind of funny to look at, actually. This combat style also includes dodging, which is usually easier than parrying, but harder to counter from. The dodge mechanic often doubles as part of the game's movement system. Some players even use it to get around the map faster. When you pair this combat system with a solid variety of skills, this can feel very skill-based and rewarding. There is a downside though. Most of your combat design has to revolve around close-range fighting. Otherwise, parrying and dodging kinda lose their purpose, and fights can drag on forever because players can just keep dodging and parrying at range. You can make it work with some clever design choices, but at its core, this style just isn't built for long-range combat. Also, another disadvantage is that these types of games are definitely not for everyone. The learning curve is usually pretty high because of the timing aspect, and if you expect players to also use skills, then, well, they also have to memorize a huge variety of skills and how to adapt to them, basically. So if your goal is to make a combat system that players can easily hop into and enjoy instantly, this might not be the best style to go for. On top of that, this combat type really depends on players having stable and low ping, otherwise you're pretty much cooked. The input delay becomes brutal. I've been there myself. I swear I'm not bad at Deep Woken. My Wi-Fi is just trash. I swear, bro, trust. Also, the last point I want to make here is that, at least in my humble opinion, most parry-based combat games end up feeling pretty similar mechanically, no matter how much the devs try to innovate or tweak it. That's not necessarily a bad thing though. It can actually make the learning curve feel smoother for new players coming from other parry-based combat games, but it does mean your game will feel a little bit less unique. Number 2, combo-based combat. Examples of these can be pretty much any battleground game or even Shindo, even though Shindo is a bit more complex and has a lot more depth. No Glaze. Hold on, is that Glaze? The Rail Brothers are goated though. This combat style relies on figuring out the best skill combos that you currently have available. This combat style usually over relies on the use of skills, even though a game doesn't necessarily need to be skill dependent for it to be a combo based game. Think about Brawlhalla, for example. It doesn't have any skills per se, you just alternate between different heavy and light attacks. Contrary to parry-based games, these games can come in a lot of different flavors. Two games can be combo-based and feel completely different mechanic-wise. For example, Jujutsu Shenanigans combat feels very different to Shindo's, and the previous two feel very different to the one featured in, for example, Boku no Roblox, an OG My Hero Academia game from my old days. Yeah, I'm old, get over it. This combat style allows for a lot more flexibility in terms of how you're able to do movement and combat as a whole, because its main mechanics don't necessarily restrict players to fight in close quarters or with stable low ping. If parry-based games' skill condition was timing, aka reaction time, this combat genre's skill condition usually relies a lot more on memory. How many different combos for different situations can you recall while fighting? How long are those combos? That's what this is mainly about. There's also a timing aspect here, but nowhere near as important as for parry-based games. This makes this type of games a lot more user-friendly, since all players have to do upon joining is memorize a couple of key combinations. Me and my two brain cells find a lot of comfort in being able to absolutely combo someone by just memorizing a set of keys. However, it also comes with its downsides. Infinite combos. Infinite combos is a problem present in a good amount of combo-based combat games, where the player figures out a combo that the opponent can't really break free once it lands. Sometimes it doesn't even require skill to pull them off. And these were the reasons for half of my crash outs growing up. Because fuck you mean there's an infinite combo in your game and you don't fix it for 5 months. Like, bro, alright. These games also require a lot more planning of their skills. If they have skills, that is. Players can very easily fall into a meta scenario where they prefer using a certain character or a certain set of skills solely because they have the most powerful combos, or the game's just straight up unplayable outside of that character or set of skills. Ideally, what you'd want is players to use them because of cool mechanics or aesthetics. If it's not, it usually makes your game feel very monotone, and nobody wants that. Number 3, simplistic combat. What I mean with this one is the more simple type of combat most Roblox games have. I could have probably named this something else, but I don't got enough brain cells to be bothered with that. What's that? To use ChatGPT to come up with a better name? Bro, if you really think I'd use ChatGPT for that? Yeah, ChatGPT did not cook with this one. I'm just gonna call it Retro Combat. If you don't like the name, well, too bad. So let's just run it back. Number 3, Retro Combat. As I've said before, this sort of combat is simple by nature, but it doesn't rely neither on pairing nor combos. It's kind of hard to explain, really. It's like you go up to an enemy, you damage them, you see they're gonna attack, and you retreat for a bit, maybe use a skill. Usually, this type of games have an item or skills you can use to complement the base combat system, but it doesn't support long combos or over-rely on parrying. The amount of brain power this game needs is very low, automatically making it a perfect fit for me. I mean, kids and all sorts of players. Anyone can join this game and understand the fighting system. Even though these games don't really have a lot of depth in their combat systems, they can still be enjoyable as long as you do a good job in the other aspects of the game, like building animations, models, VFX, lore, all that stuff. The best advantage of choosing this type of combat above the previous two is that it lets you focus on other aspects of your game that might be more or equally important as the combat. So if you're a solo developer, then this is good. If you want a game that feels simple and intuitive, this is probably the best route for you to go. This combat type also gives you a lot of freedom in terms of how you want to work around skills and movements, since there's nothing really restricting you. Obviously, you don't have to worry as much about balancing or anything of that sort, because 1, there's not much to balance, and 2, players really won't care too much if something is balanced or OP. Why? Because this style of combat is usually used in PvE-focused games. You can also use them in PvP, but then that's when you run into just the smallest of problems with balancing. It won't really take a lot of planning to get the different combat mechanics to work with each other, because there aren't a lot of them. The planning should go into how and when they acquire the skills and the different mechanics of the combat system. How simple you want to make your retro combat is really up to you. These are 2 games that both feature retro combat that I want you to think about. The first one is Hunty Zombie, which is like a dungeon beater type of game. You just spam M1s, damage NPCs, sometimes you dodge, you use your skills when you have them, but there's no significant combo or parry aspect to it. At least not to the point where you can't play the game effectively if you don't know them. This would be an example of one of the most complex types of retro combat games. You got skills, some movements, and M1s. That's it. It's simple, intuitive, and low-key fun. A little bit fried, but fun. Then you have the other end of the stick, where you got a very simplistic type of combat like the one in 99 Nights in the Forest. And an argument can be made for this to not even be considered real combat. It's not a combat game, but it does have combat nonetheless. At the late stages of the game, you got long-range weapons, and all you gotta do is run around while firing. But in the earlier stages, you gotta spin around the NPCs while hurting them, creating some sort of meta for fighting some NPCs, kind of like most old Roblox games. And even though there's no block or movement integrated into the combat, under the right circumstances, even this type of combat can thrive, proven by the game we're talking about, right? If you ask me, when the time comes on deciding what type of combat you want for your game, you shouldn't necessarily ask yourself if it's gonna be one of these three, but rather ask yourself, is combat the bread and butter of my game? What's my target player base? Do you want it to be appealing for most people? How much effort can I put into the systems, into the planning? What other features does my game need? By asking yourself these questions, you'll be able to come up with a better decision. If you want a combat system that appeals to most players, then the retro style is your best shot. If you want a more complex one, maybe consider adding some sort of combo aspect to your game, maybe making it a combo-based combat style. If all you care about is making the most skill-based combat system ever, then having parry-based combat is probably gonna be a good idea. Also, you don't even have to necessarily restrict yourself to one single category. If you're creative enough, you can mix them up in different ways. But again, this is all my opinion. With all this being said, keep leveling up, bro. Be safe, and I'll see you when I see you. Peace.